Fredericksburg Live. Go, see, do.
Hi, my name is Ashleigh Chevalier, musician and music journalist from Fredericksburg, Virginia, and for years I have heard of the legacy and wonderful music of the Prophets, a band that originated from Fredericksburg, Virginia in 1964. The Prophets had 4 singles, one of which made the Billboard Top 100 in 1966. That song, Fighting for Sam, can still be heard today, and I'm just lucky enough to catch them coming up right now. What do you know? It's the Prophets rolling up right now.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good.
Look at this here vehicle.
How's that new record?
Oh, my record's great, but I want to hear the old good records.
Oh,
Goes along with this car right here.
Well, if I could go back just to see my wife, talk to my son.
So here I am with the Prophets, the original members of the Prophets who rolled up in a really snazzy car. What kind of car was that?
It's a 60 Impala.
Now, did you have one of those?
No, I couldn't afford one of those in those days.
Well, it's a beautiful car, I can say that much. One of the great things about American rock and roll are all the wonderful stories and the people that have made music history in this wonderful country. And the Prophets have made their mark in American music history and all of their journeys and their particular special stories. One's in New York and one in particular in New Jersey with St. Jarrell, you have to say this for me.
St. Jarrell.
St. Jarrell, that's huge, okay. You tell me.
St. John Jarrell's Music Circus, Lambert Mill, New Jersey.
Which is a special event as well. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about just the history of the Prophets and originating from my native town, Fredericksburg, Virginia, and your native town, and all y'all's native town, right? All right, Steve, tell us a little bit about how y'all got together.
Well, first of all, we're sorry that one of our members can't be here. Danny Dagg is ill, and he was the lead guitar player, and so sadly he can't be here. But another thing I want to mention, Ronny Baker, our drummer down there, is cancer-free. That's right. He had a little bout with throat cancer, but he's back and doing great. And we actually get together and fraternize and have dinner and still play some shows together. But the group was started in 1964 by somebody. I was an add-on. I was hired. I think, Ronnie, didn't you start the group?
In a manner of speaking, it was, kind of in my house, let's put it that way.
All right. Was this a garage band of the 60s?
It was definitely a basement garage band.
Basement band. I think I can relate to that.
And then Leon and I, we were playing with a group called Don the Exciters. And when we got there, it was Ronnie and Danny and Malone Schooler. The members are Ronny Baker, Leon Frazier, myself, Steve Jarrell, Malone Schooler, and Danny Dagg. The 5 of us made up the original project, The Prophets. And from 1964 till the end of the summer of '67, the 5 originals were together. And then Malone left, and we had this record, Fighting for Sam, and that's exactly what we did. He was the first to go. Then I went, and then Ronnie went, and so that was. And after that, some fill-in guys came in. Actually, the Prophets went on. Prophets 2, Prophets 3, Prophets 16. I don't know what.
Prophets with exponential Roman numerals.
Yeah,
okay.
went on for years.
Now you said you all went Fighting for Sam. You all enlisted, and you went.
I enlisted. Did you enlist?
I enlisted.
Enlisted.
Yeah.
All right. And you were in the Air Force.
I was conscientious objective.
Oh, go.
That lottery number, 269.
There.
That was the 267.
All right. So you all did your civic duty. You all lived the song.
Lived the song.
Which is pretty cool, when especially these days when pop music is what it is in so many different ways, when musicians actually get behind what they put out there.
Yeah, actually, and back in those days, you remember a lot of protests against the Vietnam War, a lot of protest songs. And Leon can tell you about the song. It was his idea. He wrote, as a matter of fact, all the original material we did.
Oh, well, let's talk about that then.
So
we had gone to New York City and recorded
two sides to a single and released it. And we're actually doing some shows, and the record had come out. And record, you'll notice, not DVD. I have to add that. My son one day said, "Dad, have you ever done any music?" I said, "Yeah, we made a record." And he said, "What's a record?"
What's a record? What's a record? Everybody now is into records.
Exactly. So at any rate, we, the studio and the company that we work for, Stoner Records, said, you know, the protest songs are what are really hot right now. Eva Destruction was the #1 song at the time, as I recall. And they said, go write a protest song. So I started playing with it, and as I was writing this, it turned out more to be an anti-protest song, as it turned out. I just couldn't put those words to it.
Such is the natural writing process.
Exactly. So I was very happy the way it came out, and I think it's still current today. It was right about the Vietnam era, but I think if Steve is a disc jockey today and still plays it Memorial Day every year, Veterans Day, right?
BMI checks.
Oh, listen to
$1.69.
Oh, well, we'll hear about that. So you were talking about going to New York City and recording. Now, how did you get to New York City, and how did you come to cut your first single that made it, Fighting for Sam, to the top Billboard 100?
Well, Malone, you mentioned a guy named Fred Root. Now, you know the story of Fred Root.
I don't quite remember the story.
Fred Root was a gentleman from Sydney, New York, that we met at Fairview Beach. Now, back in the day, Fairview Beach was, believe it or not, a popular destination for campers, and people would come.
It still is.
Yeah.
And you still play there.
Still play there, yeah. I've come full circle. But it was a place that we met this gentleman and his family, Fred Root. This was back in the 60s, and he wanted us to come and play in New York. And they had a new civic center, I would call. Is that right? In Binghamton, New York, yeah. And so we went up there and opened that rec center for him and did a concert. And somehow, I don't. Anybody remember how we got to the New York World's Fair? Okay.
You actually, when you talked to Fred, and he had arranged for us to play at Sydney on a Friday night after a football game, and then open the Teen Center on Binghamton the following night. So once you booked that, you started looking at what can we do in New York, and you made a bunch of phone calls and got us at the Guy Lombardo Tipperillo Band Pavilion at the World's Fair. Now, the other complicated issue here is how many people know how far the World's Fair in New York City is from Binghamton, New York. So we're playing, we had to haul everything in from the parking lot, probably a mile through the World's Fair.
Oh, so you're a true rock and roller.
We have films of it. It was a tremendous crowd there. It had to be 1,500 people watching it. And then we had to haul all the equipment back to the car and drive. I think we got the car packed maybe by 6. We're supposed to play at 8. We arrived at 10, and amazingly, the crowd was still there, ready to go. It was great because we just walked on, the crowd was ready to go, and we played about 10:30. And then we actually stayed in different people's houses. I stayed in Fred Root's house. And to carry the story a step further, my wife and I stayed at a bed and breakfast in New Hope maybe 10 years ago. Fred Root owned it. We just asked him, it was Fred Root who owns it. So he's now in the real estate business. Owns
it all comes full circle.
Yeah.
Man, small world, huh?
So we were at the World's Fair. That's how we got to New York. But while we were also in New York, we saw CBS Studios on this window, remember? I met with those guys, and you might...
Well, yeah, that was an interesting story. It was we were looking through, we saw the CBS window, and they said, this guy, and it wasn't Lee Stone, it was, who was the older gentleman? Yeah, he was running some kind of thing to where he said, okay, we're having this thing where amateur bands pay X amount of dollars and they get to play in front of all of these producers, record producers. And I called the guy, and he ran it down for me. You pay? I said, well, we've got a good band, but we're not going to pay for you to hear us. And the guy says, you think you're that good, huh? And I said, well, I don't know how good we are, but we're better than having to pay to play. So he invited us to come that afternoon. It was late afternoon. Remember, we went in and set up in the office and played. And the next thing we know, he made a couple of phone calls, and we had a recording contract.
And there you go. And then you had that, and then you had your single hit the Billboard.
Yeah, well, yeah.
The togas.
Yeah, the togas now, that kind of, well, we didn't start out with the togas. Our first job actually was in Fredericksburg. Do y'all remember where it was?
It was the National Guard Armory, wasn't it?
Nope. It was at the yeah, Girls. We opened in front of a girls, and it was at the Colonial Theater.
Now, how old were you guys when you did this?
I was 14.
All right, girls. Sounds pretty appropriate.
But I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but the New York thing. So we didn't start out with the togas. We got the record out. We recorded at Bell Sound Studios, which was really neat because that's where Phil Spector did all his stuff with the Righteous Brothers and the Wall of Sound. The walls, if you all remember, were kind of curved or rounded or something. And then Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons did their stuff at Bell Sound too. And then they lined us all these good guy shows with Cousin Brucey and Harry Harrison and Jack Spector, a DJ there. We did Palisades Park and all these with Dionne Warwick, and we did other shows with all these other acts, and James Madison High School at Brooklyn. We did one there with Brian Hyland, and it was just Bobby Full of Four. Yeah, Clay Cole television show, and we actually Ronny, I think, was on the Chariot. Because it certainly wouldn't hold all of us, but it was. We had a press conference at Sardi's East in New York, and with these teen magazines, and they took us down Broadway, or Ronny, and we were behind him in a chariot that was pulled by two white horses from the Ben-Hur movie. So I tell people, well, we've ridden down Broadway in New York in a chariot, and they kind of look at you strange, but it. Yeah, I don't know how you got it. Because your daddy had the camera, I think. Your dad, Pop Baker, was Ronny's dad, and God bless him. He's looking down on us, smiling from up above now. But he traveled with us and documented everything, and it's great. In which one of the films that he took was taken at a music contest that we entered in Lambertville, New Jersey, and it was St. John Tiro's Music Circus. And a real famous place. A lot of big stars played there. And they had this Battle of the Bands, amateur Battle of the Bands contest that we entered. And when they sent us a list of the points the judges would give you for voting, well, first of all, you had to do an original song. That was one of the things you had to do. And one of the things on there was, well, if you were on TV and all of a sudden the sound went off, the television, would your appearance still attract the viewer without them changing the station? So,
that's an interesting question, actually. You know, I'd never actually heard it put quite that way.
And, back at the time in the 60s, all the British acts, the British invasion, everybody dressed like the Beatles practically.
Well, Jim Morrison was about to get up in your face, and,
So Ronny's dad owned the shoe business, which Ronny has inherited, and he has now. And the name of the group being the Prophets, made us these sandals that there were like Roman sandals that crossed to our knees.
I need some of them.
Yeah, and Ronny's mom made us these togas. So and Mickey, yeah.
She was in the
And Mickey was. And so actually we started out, to do this just for the contest. And we got up there, and everybody's kind of laughing at us. We're walking around like we were the first toga party. I think John Belushi must have seen it or something.
You never know. If you interviewed John Belushi, asked him where he got the idea, he could say, I saw this group of teeny bop band stars wearing togas down a chariot lane, and I just thought that was what I was supposed to do.
That's what I'm destined to do.
Animal House. We were the house band at Theta Chi and UVA. I mean, so much so that they tried to make us honorary brothers. Remember, we played for everything they did.
Now, were you in that movie?
Well,
I thought
we weren't, but we played Theta Chi more than once with the togas. They even had a guy in the fraternity who had an old Jaguar that was new at the beginning of the year, and you remember at the end it was totally trashed, just like the movie. I'm convinced somebody saw us at one of those fraternity parties. This was before Animal House.
Well, I mean, UVA.
Idea. I mean, it was the whole movie almost seemed to be taken from Theta Chi. What we experienced there was.
Well, I mean, it's funny how stories like that actually do influence art. Like, I mean, that's what art is, right?
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Oh, well, you know, I don't know that nobody would ever probably own up to it, but may very well be the truth there.
You know, I ran some old, ran over some old pictures and things, some old contracts actually. And see, Malone is always the businessman. He always did all the contractual things with, you know, we were making big money, like $250 a night, you know,
Huge.
$50 a piece,
Strong.
and
Strong money.
but and I'll never forget Malone telling me one time as we were counting those big bills out, $10 a piece, and it wasn't one of the best gigs. And Malone looked at us and says, "We're in a business where we forget the losses and exaggerate the wins." So I've kind of lived by that.
You know what? That was quoted to me when I first met you, actually, and you know, it said someone once told me, and I have passed that on myself. So when you hear that in the business, it came from Malone Schooler, and not Theta Chi or UVA. And if you hear it in the movies one day, it's Malone Schooler.
But St. John Terrell's Music Circus was really interesting because there was a big tent, and then it had seating inside the tent. It had a circular stage. Mm-hmm. And Ronny was reminding me of something that happened to us on the stage. And it might have had something to do with the competition. I don't know. There was you want to tell the story about the stage?
Yeah, the circular stage and everything obviously was, you know, run by electricity. So right in the middle of our show, all of a sudden the power went out in the whole place. The stage stopped. There was no sound.
But you were wearing togas, so everybody kept watching.
And I was playing drums. Well, the drums don't need electric. No. Malone turned around to me. We had this thing we used to do between songs in our regular shows. And he just called it the shuffle. And I did a little beat, quiet beat, while Steve was announcing the next song and so forth. So Malone turned to me and said, "Shuffle, Ronny, shuffle." So I shuffled. And we were on a timer, and we didn't think about that at the time. If you went over a certain amount of time in your part of the show, you got penalized for it. And because of that shuffle, we were over our limit. And that could have had something to do with where we ended up in the show, I don't know, as far as the competition is concerned. And I'm still shuffling.
Well, the power went out. You think they gave you some leniency for that anyway. So tell me what it was like to perform at a venue like that. I mean, paint the picture. Give us the image. Was this you said it was a big circus tent. Was it red and yellow?
It was, I remember like blue and orange or something like that or something. Yeah, it was.
Lots of people and vendors.
It was lots of people and lots of cameras, and it was what?
Lots of bands.
Lots of bands.
Lots of fun.
It was an international battle band.
International.
Got the New York Times article that has a picture, the picture of Malone. It's in my car right now, but it's a picture of Malone on stage, and it's showing the venue, and it's the International Battle of Bands. So they were filming it. I don't know. I would love to have the film. We have the film that Pop Baker did, which is black and white. James Michener wrote an article in the New York Times called "Don't Knock the Rock," and he was one of the judges. Phil Spector, James Michener, and Miss Teenage America.
Also came out in Reader's Digest.
Right.
Also came out in Reader's Digest, you said?
So the math was there were 400 bands playing over 3 different weekends. 9 came back. We were one of the final 9 out of 400. 3 at a time set up on this revolving stage and did 3 shows, 9 bands, and we got 4th out of that. And as Ronny said, the scoring was, no doubt we lost points because of the outage. But the band that won, was a local band, Galaxy 5, I believe. And they had their own cheering squad. He must have been 100 people with signs saying Galaxy 5 rocks. They were very good.
Well, that's the thing with the battle of the bands.
Fan clubs. As a matter of fact, I've been in touch with, I have their, I was in touch with the leader of the group. I can't remember his name now, just recently. And they sent me some old songs. So occasionally on my radio show, I play some of the old songs by the band that won. But they did, and the way I got in touch with him was through his fan club. They had this big fan club that showed up and had signs, Galaxies Forever, you know, and all of this stuff. But it was kind of neat. James A. Michener, the author, of course, being one of the judges, and then Phil Spector, the record producer, was one of the judges. St. John Terrell, he was actually there. I don't know I can't remember if he was a judge or not. Probably not.
Well, okay, but you'd already had your single at this point. You'd already released your single. Had already gone to the top 100. So you weren't quite an amateur band. I mean, you were still a nationally recognized band that went to this competition, and it just goes to show the dynamics of these things. But what's really interesting is all the stories that go into a band that does what makes the accomplishments that you guys have made, and special spots that you're talking about that have historic place in the United States and in music that people may or may not know about.
Well, it's all about the town. It's all about the people of Fredericksburg. I mean, we were 5 guys that started a band in high school, and we played the school dances and everything. And you know, it's the people in town that make you. You know, they stood.
It's always like that.
Yeah, they stood behind us and just you know, come up, hey, good record. Or I remember WFVA playing our very first record, and the excitement. Hey, there's nothing like hearing your first record on the radio. I mean, that's just a thrill.
You played one of my first songs on the radio, and it was just a demo, so I know the feeling, and I can say that for Fredericksburg, there's a lot of great music that's come out of our town, the Prophets being the beginning of a lot of that. The Seldom Seen was a Grammy-winning bluegrass band. John Carroll, which you guys went to school with, went on and was a Grammy winner with the Starland Vocal Band, and now tours with Mary Chapin Carpenter for years now, and tours solo. And you've got Gaya Degbalola, Sapphire and the Uppity Blues Women, and Rapson. Keller Williams is doing really, really well. I'm kind of going in order here of era. No, I'm just telling you that's how my brain was working. So, and you know, but there are other people in the current music scene now, like you were in your generation, who are doing amazing things, having their stories like this out in, Maddie Wolf is one. She's a young lady working with Bill Green, which you guys might know, and she's going to New York, and I worked with John Carroll, which is cool, and it's just the supportive community in Fredericksburg, and I always have to take this time, is it's like a mini Austin.
Those girls, those 3 girls, what are they called? They're 3 young girls that are popular from the.
Hanging with Stogie. Now those girls, yeah, they're great. They're wonderful. So you know the town is, and they're signed, and they're doing really, really well. And so Fredericksburg Music has done all that, and it'll be interesting when someone like me interviews them in 30 years. And you guys need to tell me and tell everyone else what you're doing right now.
Well, yeah. Before we get into that, I do want to say, you're talking about where we started. Now, we had people that influenced us, too. Mm-hmm. As around, I was influenced a lot by Robert Williams, who's and the Groovers, and Larry Eubank, and Emery Shover, and Melvin, what was Melvin's last? Melvin Marshall. And Key Howard, of course, and the Saints, and Butch May, and it just goes on and on. The Diplomats that were around, the Continentals, the Satellites, the Groovers. I know I'm missing some, but they all influenced us, and we were all friends, and you know, we just ended up being at the right place at the right time. You know,
so much of it's positivity and support and genuine. How I say this all the time, that you can't. What sets you apart isn't necessarily what you're doing or what you're saying, because a lot of people might share the same. It's how honest you are about it.
And you know, and it's just another more comes to mind: the Royals, the Infernos, right. Don and the Exciters. It just goes on. They were all part of and supported us. I mean, it wasn't like a competition, really. It was like, hey, what are you guys doing? Hey, that's great, you know. And it all, you know, really helped because when you have the luck, you know, sometimes you can look at it like, well, I had the luck, but it's more like we had the luck. I mean, we were happy to be not the prophets, but we were happy to be the prophets from Fredericksburg, Virginia.
Well, and you're never doing anything by yourself, and I think that's very important to remember. So what are you guys all doing now? You're not playing with the prophets, though sometimes there's a prophets 2, 3, 4, and 5 in a million.
We have a reunion every now and then.
Well, yeah, and everybody loves it because that's what the community is about, and it brings generations together just like music does, especially favorite songs. So what are you doing now?
Right, number one, I was the senior vice president of Sprint Nextel for 13 years. And like Steve said, I didn't serve in the military, but I was proud to. Nextel had the push to talk, and we had an emergency response team that responded to a 96 disaster. So even though I didn't do my time in the service, I spent most of that 13 years. A big part of what we did was Katrina and 9/11, being there with 10,000 phones and helping public safety. So did that for 13 years, and I'm retired now.
Okay.
So still play music. I have a full band set up in the basement.
There you go. Another basement band. Everybody's got one.
I think one thing we left out that I was thinking while Steve was talking about luck or not luck is when you think of what could have been, it can keep you up at night. In that when we made this record and it hit the top 100, we were in the record office and they had a stack of invoices this high to buy the record. They went bankrupt. The Stonell Records, which was a small recording company. So here we are on the top 100. Yeah. We've got invoices like this to order records, and they couldn't ship their records.
You know, that's interesting because that happens in the record business repeatedly. Andrew Hellier, who's a Fredericksburg musician, was signed to RCA and all that stuff. He's not from here, but he's been in and out of the area for a long time. Same thing happened to him when the Napster crisis happened. So the record industry has dealt with things like that, and a lot of times bands fall through the crevices of the money.
So Steve went and met with Imperial Records. They said, we've heard this song, we really like it, we'd love to do business with you, but you have a contract with Stonell and they're bankrupt. So we just came back home and started, you know, we got paid more to play because we had a record, so that was nice. And, you know, we continued, we made a couple more. We made one on our own 20 years later, Reunion Records. But so you never know what could have happened. That song was really going, and I always think back, how would things be different if the company hadn't gone bankrupt?
Well, the industry's riddled with stories like that, artists, and that's where the luck factor comes in because, well, that's just how it is. So how about you? What are you doing?
Oh, I have a humble little shoe repair and orthopedic business.
Everything.
6 days a week. I retire every night when I get home.
Retire every night when you get home.
And get up and go back to work.
You know, I do that too. All right, and what are you up to these days?
Ashleigh, I'm a commercial real estate developer. I do neighborhood, grocery-anchored shopping centers for the most part. Been blessed to do it for the last 30, 35 years, and it's worked out very nice.
Well, that's how you got that cool car.
Maximize your profits.
And, you know, forget the losses and exaggerate. All right, Steve, now you're still in the music business.
I'm still looking for a job, actually.
The acting business and the radio business. That's how it is nowadays.
You got to do it all. Let's say the entertainment. I'm between films. No, actually, I've been very blessed to be able to continue in the music industry, and a little sideline that I got into radio. It was something that I did as a favor 10 years ago. I've been doing that, and being in the music business and living in the Nashville, Tennessee area, I got to messing around with some acting from time to time. So I've started doing a little more of that too, and so you know, it keeps me busy.
A man of many artistic abilities, and the only one. I mean, you're still playing music, but the only one who's still actively working in that field. But see, you never really get away from it, guys. See, so now, like I said earlier, what makes American rock and roll and music great are the stories and people that go in it. And I'm glad that you guys touched on the community that helped make what you did, because we're never doing anything alone, and that you shared the wonderful stories that you did with us.
Once again, I'm sorry Danny Dagg can't be here with us. You know, I'm really missing him today, you know, because he is a big, very talented guitar player. He was actually the youngest in the group, but probably had more talent than all of us. He's would sit around and practice his guitar to Wes Montgomery, and what was the other guy?
How about a few grades there?
Charlie Bird, that's what I was trying to. Incredible guitar player, and like I said, you know, he's under the weather. We wish him all the best and speedy recovery. And miss you, Danny. Wish you could be here with us today. And congratulations in order for you. I know you got to run because you've got your first CD that John Carroll produced coming out today. And Ashleigh here's a fantastic singer, and she's actually done some performances with me. I came back to town to play and kept hearing about this young lady, and finally got a chance to hear her, and she just blew me away. So we've had our 15 minutes of fame, so go out and buy an Ashleigh Chevalier record produced by John Carroll.
Oh, well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. And my name is Ashleigh Chevalier. As I said earlier, I'm a musician and music journalist from Fredericksburg, Virginia. And I just love to hear all the stories and everything that could not just come from this town, but come from all the United States, because it is a blended, wonderful community. Have a wonderful day.
This video is powered by Video Man Productions, who can help you with high-quality professional video. The Video Man can. FredericksburgVideo.com.